And Jensen on the LeBlanc. He burst damage kills to find his first LCS championship.
People once considered Poisonous can improve. Incarnation, later Jensen, went from a permanent ban for toxicity and DDoSing to winning several LCS trophies. Tyler 1 had 22 of his accounts banned over the years, only to become a beloved figure invited to many Riot events. And even outcasts without a warm welcome like Apto still have successful careers as content creators. Of all these rejects, there's no one more hated than the rank 1 player Joseph Selensky, otherwise known as XJ9. He became prominent for his high server rankings and innovative jungle style, but rose in infamy for very explicit death threats, extremely abusive behavior in and outside the game, and leaking nude photos of his ex-girlfriend for playing a character he didn't like. While there was debate for people like Tyler 1, the idea XJ9 was an unstable and negative person unfit to be part of League seemed almost unanimous, one of the first players to receive the incredibly rare punishment known as the ID ban, and every thread about him receiving hundreds or thousands of hate comments. To understand XJ9's troubles, you need to understand why people cared about him in the first place. He played in the first seasons of the game, cultivating a very unique style. While some of his innovations were novelties like his Lissandra home guard technique, his approach to the jungle and the champions he used were much more impactful. Most junglers were as supportive as possible to their teammates, while XJ9's strategy revolved around being at the forefront, taking blue buffs, taking CS from laners, and prioritizing his own win conditions. While some called this strategy selfish, already adding a distaste for XJ9, it was very effective. At one point he was the top-ranked player in North America, and MVP players like Cloud9 Meteos drew inspiration from XJ9 to dominate professional play.
I think XJ9 was really good back when he was rank 1 and whatnot, because he played so differently from everyone else, and he never really took inspiration from anyone. He just sort of figured things out on his own. So I think he was definitely really game smart. He was crazy for sure, but I was influenced by the way he played because I played against him a lot in solo queue. I remember at the beginning I'd always lose against him, and it would be like these really frustrating losses where I would go for a gank on a lane, get him a tiny lead, then he would AFK farm, get 6 extremely early, and then just kill someone level 6, and then I'm level 5, he's level 7, he's just way stronger than me. And so I remember I would watch his stream sometimes when he'd play and just sort of not copy exactly what he did, but just try to understand what he did. And it just sort of stuck out to me that oh, even if he has a really weak lane, he doesn't view it as his fault. He doesn't look at it as oh, he should have helped them more. He was sort of just oh, that guy's really bad. So instead of trying to help him, I'm going to take everything away from him because he's not going to be good anyway, and just make myself strong so I can carry. So I'd say that part of my playstyle was influenced a bit by him, but I think he's kind of crazy.
He was also active in the community, posting often to the League forums and subreddit, uploading clips and guides to YouTube, and streaming his games on Twitch. Paired with competing with some teams in competition, XJ9 developed a respectable following. But it was around this time that XJ9 began destroying all hope of having a successful League career. In June 2013, XJ9 announced that all 9 of his accounts had been banned. Shortly after, the company's player support lead for player behavior, Wookie Cookie, posted an explanation, stating, "We don't normally comment on issues like this, but since the player has decided to take it public as well as attempt to drag others down in the mud and start a witch hunt, I will state all we have to say on the matter. These accounts were permanently banned because the player behind them has been incredibly abusive to players within our community. In one unfortunate case, very explicit death threats were made against another user. In addition, this player has repeatedly stolen other players' accounts after getting their login information." The player makes reference to another user who was permanently banned on the forums. However, he fails to mention that the victim was only permanently banned after he compromised her forum account and spammed pornographic and other foul threads in order to get her account banned. It's clear to us that these acts were intentional and malicious on this player's part, and as such we believe he has no place within our community. We will not be reversing our decision in this matter, and will not be allowing him back into the League of Legends community in any form. XJ9 made an appeal on the game forums, but was once again informed the decision was permanent. To add insult to injury, he was also banned from Twitch. In an interview, the jungler asked for a second chance, saying his mental health caused his actions. He apologized and begged forgiveness, and said he wanted to come back into the game a different person. However, around the same time of that apology, his actions showed he had little intention in changing as a person. A few weeks later, XJ9 came into far more serious controversy when it was reported that he had a disagreement with his partner at the time. His then-girlfriend had played Lee Sin in a game, a character XJ9 hated, taking it as a grave insult. In retaliation, XJ9 posted naked photographs of her on his public Facebook page, later explaining his logic to the popular streamer Destiny.
If you were thinking about anybody else, you wouldn't be posting private information on Facebook and messaging her
if
friends
she was thinking
about
about
it.
me, she wouldn't
It doesn't matter. You can't play that game. That doesn't work that way.
We literally said to each other, if I really hated you, the worst thing I could do is play Lee Sin. And then that's what she did. When I say neutral, it's like I think about everyone's feelings. Like I think about.
But you don't. You clearly don't, or you wouldn't have posted her personal pictures online.
XJ9's conversation with Destiny is insanity, with the VOD being available online in 14 parts. The 7-hour discussion features the two talking in circles, with Destiny unable to convince XJ9 that his actions were wrong, narcissistic, and displayed massive cognitive dissonance. Although the conversation was unproductive, with some events including XJ9 showing off his push-up skills and often explaining why Lee Sin is a bad champion.
It's a very poor ultimate because she plays it exactly on top of her, which is bad when she should have placed it like over here, because it's like he won't be in this section, so it's all wasted, honestly.
The talk mainly showed how unstable he was. It was almost as if his self-centered playstyle was a reflection of his real-life mindset. He didn't understand his actions after several hours, and began to state threats to Destiny near the end of the call, leading Destiny to later call the police. The vast majority of the video comments were in shock at his reasoning, with outside media sources and discussion boards also expressing their horror. While most of his actions beforehand were unacceptable, any remaining sympathy for XJ9 had evaporated, as his actions had turned from taboo online offenses to an actual crime, with revenge porn already legal in several states at the time. Paired with an unsavory personality and being a brony in the early 2010s, the hate for him was enormous. The girlfriend in question broke up with him, his main Reddit account faced a shadow ban, and XJ9 became the game's biggest pariah. His regular bans on countless accounts going forward show he was one of the few players in the world to face the treatment of an ID ban, a rare step in which the game developers would regularly search for Riot account activity on the part of the banned player, and immediately ban him on site. Afterward, XJ9 didn't stir much up for quite some time. He still had a cult following and was infamous for posting highly liked negative comments on League YouTube videos, but he was otherwise ignored. In 2014 though, XJ9 re-entered conversation, as he would start working with the EULCS team Super Hawk Crew as the jungle coach. While most of the community acknowledged XJ9's expertise with the position, most questioned the idea that someone of his reputation was fit to work with a professional team. However, the biggest public proponent for him receiving another chance was the team's head coach, LS. The social media posts and video on the subject are deleted, but LS held the opinion that XJ9 could be a positive force for the community. While there's no backup of the video available online, the Daily Dot covered the story and offered some of the key quotes of the defense of XJ9. It's a somewhat persuasive argument, stating, "What he did was severely immature. What he did was bad. There's no denying that. Speaking with him, he acknowledges that. He was stupid and the choices that he made were idiotic. We can't excuse the things he did. There's been no issue with him thus far, and I don't see an issue arising. Can he be immature? Of course, he's still young. He has a right to mess up and make mistakes. That's what's supposed to happen before you're an adult and enter the real world." Basically, XJ9 did do everything he did about a year and a half ago, when he was 16 years old. He is now 18. That's not a huge amount of time, but normally, in America, you're given a clean slate at 18, barring you didn't do something really catastrophic. While you could argue XJ9's actions were catastrophic, the points were worth considering. All the heinous actions of XJ9 happened when he was 16, and if he could continue not doing anything wrong and improve, why shouldn't he receive another chance after already being punished? There's a discussion to be had on whether the community he made mistakes in is the right place to grow, but it's an ever-changing debate that hasn't reached a consensus. LS himself was someone that had a low reputation amongst many in the StarCraft community for cheating, as well as the early League scene for his brash opinions, only to rehabilitate himself over the years, now today one of the most popular figures in the world. Obviously, the severity of XJ9's actions were far worse, but the principle of rehabilitation remains. However, the debate was short-lived, as less than a month later it was revealed that XJ9 was no longer a part of the organization. There hasn't been any official explanation on why this was the case, whether because of community or behind-the-scenes pressure, but the main point was that XJ9 was once again removed from the scene. That wasn't until a shocking announcement the following year on XJ9's Facebook that he had received another chance, once again sending the community into an uproar. Unfortunately for him, the reprieve was once again short-lived as a high-ranking Riot employee, the lead designer of social systems Jeffrey Light Lin, posted to the community. Let me clarify here, we will not be lifting the permanent ban on XJ9. Given his track record of extremely abusive behavior in and outside the game, XJ9 is one of the rare cases where we've decided to issue a permanent, on-site ban of the individual. The player support writer here had good intentions but lacked full context into the extent of XJ9's past behavior. We are always willing to work with players who make a genuine effort to reform their behavior, and that's why our driving philosophy is to ban an account permanently, not the player. However, in certain extreme cases where the behavior is particularly abusive or has legal implications, we believe a permanent ban against the individual is warranted in the interest of protecting the wider player community. It's clear from this post that there were no intentions of ever letting XJ9 play again. Although this did cause some discussion around the community about the nature of reforming, and if a permanent ban for all time was proper, it appeared to do nothing to dissuade Riot from reconsidering their decision. It'd be a bit quieter for XJ9 after that. From there, with no way to play the game publicly without getting banned, and with Riot showing no signs of ever letting XJ9 rejoin the game, the latter gave up. He turned to the shady practice of elo boosting, following in the footsteps of players like Apto. Although League of Legends forgot about XJ9, he never forgot about the game. He continued to make guides on different champions, create content surrounding the game, and posted on social media about his desire to get unbanned with surprising frequency. That's where I thought this story ended, a tale of one of the most hated and insane people to ever play video games. But it doesn't. Going into the 2020s, years after his initial ban, XJ9 still had the desire to return. He admits he's submitted hundreds of tickets since the initial ban, and it looks like he's got his wish. In a Facebook post in October of 2021, he announced that he had been unbanned, in fact initially having his ban lifted as early as February of that year. He stated, "It's weird being unbanned." And he's right. It is weird. For a person considered so toxic by both the general community and the game's developers, it is weird that he's been able to come back. Not only that, he's gained his Twitch account back, has streamed the game for hundreds of hours, and even has his original username. According to op.gg, he's played on this account into 2023. So what happened? Reaching out to Riot yielded no response, so we're left to speculate on what caused this change in judgment. It's possible it's a change in approach to cases like these, with people like Light having long left the company. However, the simplest explanation, and probably the best one, is that no one noticed and no one cares anymore. Since his unbanning, he's maintained a very small profile in content creation. It's likely that no one but a small minority of community members even remember XJ9, and just as likely that barely anyone at Riot Player Support remember either. It's probable he slipped through the cracks. A far more interesting discussion: should he have been unbanned? From the looks of it, it doesn't seem like him playing has done any damage to the wider player community. There have been no public legal implications since his return, and from watching his recent streams, he doesn't seem to be doing any tangible harm in-game. Judging by his public profile, he still appears to be a narcissistic and immature person. But at the same time, he's no worse now than a lot of people playing. He just wants to play the game and make content in peace. There's no evidence he's continued committing crimes or exhibiting extremely abusive behavior such as in the past. He's probably not the ideal role model or human, but it looks like he's calmed down a bit. At the same time, what he did was absolutely heinous, and there's certainly an argument to be said that just because he committed these terrible actions at 16 doesn't mean he needs to be treated nicely by a video game company. It's definitely an interesting discussion. But based on the fact that he's been playing the game publicly for multiple seasons, the ones who levied this initial long-term punishment have either changed their mind in how they protect the wider community, or don't care to apply the same force they once did. XJ9 was young, talented, stupid, and extremely arrogant, qualities that added up to make him the most hated League of Legends player ever. His behavior and personality has made him a very unsympathetic character, but he remains a thought-provoking story of the nature of rehabilitation and forgiveness.